All right, so we'll go ahead and get started here. It's just after 6 o'clock here. I know we still got some more people trickling in here. Again, this is to discuss the University Avenue corridor improvements, 31st Street to 48th Street. I just want to cover some typical instructions. This meeting is on Zoom. We are recording the meeting. That way it can be viewed at a later time as well for if there are folks that were not able to attend or want to go back and look at the meeting. It is being recorded. We'll post that on the website on our city webpage. Just some general instructions for Zoom. If you're on a computer, hopefully you see a menu bar, kind of like the one shown right on the middle of the screen here, where you can click on the participants tab, and that participants tab will give you some options to raise hand and lower hand. So that'll allow you to raise and lower your hand. And then that way we can run the meeting in an orderly fashion, give other folks time to speak and not interrupt each other. And so again, we ask that you raise your hand if you'd like to speak. And then if you want to lower your hand, there's a command to lower your hand as well. If you're on a cell phone, you're on a phone and you press *9 to raise your hand, and to mute and unmute yourself, press *6. So again, if you're on a phone, I'm not seeing if there are folks that are on a phone yet or not. It looks like, well, there may be one. Yeah. So if you're on a phone, *9 to raise your hand, *9 to raise your hand, and then *6 to mute or unmute yourself. So *9 to raise your hand, *6 to mute or unmute yourself. Otherwise, folks that are on the computer, again, please see on the screen there. There's a participants tab that you can click on to raise your hand and lower your hand. So, okay. All right. So I'll start off with my name is Steve Neighbor. I'm the city engineer for the city of Des Moines, also a Des Moines resident. And I have with me a whole bunch of a number of city staff on the call from different departments, from planning to engineering, and so I got a number of team members with me as well. I do note we have some of our council members. Councilmember Carl Voss is also on the phone with us as well. Let's see if I'm missing anybody that's on the phone as well. So again, thank you everyone for joining us. We're here to talk about the University Avenue corridor improvements. We're going to give a quick presentation here. I'm going to give you some background and why the project is put before us here, why we're proposing the project, and then we're going to look at Dave Camp is going to help me with kind of going through some of the proposed improvements, the details, and the schedule, and then we'll stop for questions and comments. So okay. Yep, and I see we also have some more. Councilmember Josh Mandelbaum has joined us. Thank you, Councilmember Mandelbaum. Councilmember Indira Shoemaker's also and joined us. So let's see here. Okay. All right. So thank you, council members Shoemaker, Mandelbaum, and Voss for joining us. So let's go ahead and get started here. Okay. All right. So a little bit of background. In 2019, University Avenue from 63rd to 55th was converted to a 3-lane roadway with a center left turn lane. This was done kind of with that when the old pedestrian bridge near Windsor Elementary was replaced with a high intensity activated crosswalk in Refuge Island that you see today. In 2019, also University Avenue from 55th to 48th was converted to 3 lanes, and then the multi-use trail was added along the Waveland Golf Course. Okay. In 2020, University Avenue from 31st to 25th Street was converted from a 5-lane to a 3-lane roadway section with a center left turn lane and on-street bike lanes. This was done in coordination with a streetscape plan that was developed by Drake University, and the city at the time had a large sewer project that was going through this segment, and so this was a effort that was coordinated between Drake and the city. So why are we here to talk about this project, this particular section? Well, the main goal of this project is roadway safety and multimodal accessibility. So when we talk about safety, reducing unsafe corridor speeds and vehicular maneuvering. That's one of the big focuses and goals of this project. There was a traffic study that was done by a private consulting firm that took speed radar data showing that the 85th percentile speeds, which is speeds at which 85% of the people are traveling at, are at generally 30 miles an hour, 39 miles an hour, and 37 miles an hour in this 30-mile-an-hour speed limit area. So the actual radars were set up between 45th and 46th. And so those are high numbers. Those are high numbers for definitely for a corridor that goes
space key. So this is the space key.
Right through. Whoops, sorry. Let me get everyone to get some folks that maybe got unmuted here. Those are high speeds that for a corridor that goes right through the heart of two of our very large. Our large neighborhoods in Waveland Park and Drake. And so speed reduction with the goal there, improving pedestrian crossing distance. Obviously today, again, this goes right through the heart of our neighborhoods, two large neighborhoods, and reducing the cross section to a 3-lane shortens the pedestrian crossing distances. So we'll show that graphically here in a little bit. And then also this is on our core bike network. So we would look to also add, reallocate the space for the lanes to add dedicated bicycle facilities. So again, safety, road diets, road diets have been proven nationally and locally. We've done several of them here in Des Moines to improve roadway safety, improve the multimodal accessibility. So. Why is this project needed? We also want to provide a consistent right-sized corridor. Okay, the vehicular traffic volumes that have been collected multiple times along this corridor by us and Iowa DOT for their counts, the daily volumes range between 10,000 and 15,000 vehicles a day. This is well within the capacity of a 3-lane roadway. 3-lane roadways generally can handle about 20,000 vehicles a day. We then also look at the Metropolitan Planning Organization, who does modeling for and future planning. That modeling shows that the 2040 volumes are about 17,000 vehicles a day. So again, still well within the capacity of the roadway. So. Okay. So again, when we talk about providing a consistent corridor, the roadway has already been is 3 lanes between 48th and 63rd Street. So here shown in purple, and the roadway is already 3 lanes between 31st and 25th, shown in blue. So this is kind of looking at that middle section there. So. And then another component of this project is to improve pavement condition. So this project would include resurfacing, rehabilitating the roadway as well. Oops. Okay. We do look at we have our planning documents. Move DSM is the city's transportation master plan that was approved in 2018. So that's an awesome document that we use anytime we have a roadway project such as this one, where we have we're looking at improving the roadway, surfacing the roadway, reconstructing the roadway. We stop and look at that document to see what does our roadway what should our roadway look like? What are some of the needs from our planning documents? And so this roadway goes to a number of nodes, and it is on the core bike network. It is on our transit. Does have transit routes along it, our DART bus routes along it. So it is also on a truck route and emergency vehicle route. So these are things that we to look at from a planning standpoint. Whoops. So here's a general proposal of what we're looking at. And so the existing roadway is 5 10-foot wide lanes, 5 10-foot wide lanes. So 2 lanes in each direction with a bi-directional left turn lane. And so the proposal is to make it a 3-lane roadway, 11-foot lane in each direction. That's for the emergency response and truck route capabilities, or to accommodate those factors. And then a center bi-directional left turn lane, and then we'd be adding bike lanes on each side of the road which are separated by 3-foot wide buffer. So that's the general existing and proposed cross section. Okay. All right, and then looking at it kind of by segment, this is looking at just kind of some highlights of what's been proposed west of 47th Street. And so we're looking at, again, converting to the 3-lane and then connecting to that shared use pedestrian trail as well. And then in this case, we are proposing to maintain the front and angled parking. We have had a handful of meetings with various stakeholders in the past about this project, and we're looking at the back and angle parking based on those meetings and those discussions. We are proposing to maintain the front and angle parking that you see today between 48th Street and Polk Boulevard. And then one change would be a right turn in and out only at 47th Street and signal improvements. So we'll show a graphic here of that. So here's kind of a zoomed out graphic of that 3-lane. Now, Dave Camp, are you on?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, we can hear you. Yeah. So I don't know if you want to transition about here. Or,
Sure. I can step through the rest of the project. Thanks everybody for joining us today. My name's Dave Camp. I'm the Chief Design Engineer with the city. We're going to it's a very long corridor, so we're just going to step you through the corridor and kind of talk about each area. And then once we get done, we can kind of open it up for questions for folks. And so this project on the west end actually starts where the previous work ended. This is also being developed in coordination with the trolley plaza that's being developed right just to the east of the Waveland Golf Course entrance at the west end of this area. So this section of roadway really provides on-street parking on the north side of the roadway near the west end. It extends the multi-use trail all the way from where we ended it near the Waveland Golf Course on the south side over to Polk Boulevard. It also provides for reestablishing some of the head-in parking at the business area or business hub at just west of Polk Boulevard there on the north and south side of the roadway. So as you can see, the sections below that kind of shows it's going from a 5-lane with a 2-lane in each direction down to a 1-lane in each direction, exactly how it looks off to the west of this area as well. So we'll, if you want to skip down to the next slide, this kind of gives you a little bit different views of this area and what is possible through this area. This is a little bit of a rendering showing a little bit more detail than just the drawing that we showed. So these are views, and if you want to step through, we'll get a better view of some of these renderings to the next slide.
Okay. Yep. And as Dave mentioned, I just want to highlight, these are graphics that we had a consultant team and our planning folks draft up of kind of what the area could look like. Ultimately, the roadway project that is currently funded is focused on the roadway improvements, the trail and the roadway improvements. It does not have elements like the columns here in the decorative lighting and landscaping. I wanted to just make sure we're clear on that this was a visionary document of what the node area could be. The roadway project doesn't have the funding for those streetscape decorative type elements, just to make sure we're transparent on that. So, okay, Dave. Okay.
So yeah, so these are just some various views through the area. This one is actually looking east from the Waveland Golf Course entrance. You're kind of up high looking, so you can kind of see we've added parking on the north side of the roadway there, or the left of your screen, and you can see the multi-use trail on the south side of the roadway, or the right hand of your side of your screen. So this just gives you a little bit of a different view. On the next slide is looking east as if you were above 48th Street, really focused on that business area. As you can see on the right hand of the screen, trying to delineate between the sidewalk area and the trail usage by using different colors on the bike trail system. And also you see the head-in parking through the area, similar to what it is today. So, and the next slide is actually looking east. If you were above Polk Boulevard there, we talked a little bit about 47th Street and how it's a little bit difficult to leave in and out today. So we're proposing a median there to restrict the left turn movements from 47th Street onto University. So this actually creates the intersection at Polk Boulevard that functions normally. You can pull up. that does come with creating 47th Street as a right in, right out only. But right as today, you're not quite sure where to stop when you pull up to that intersection. So that provides a little bit of a benefit and a safety feature as part of the project. So the next slide, now we're going to shift beyond 47th to the east, looking toward 42nd Street. There again, we're converting from a 5-lane to a 3-lane with a 2-way center left turn lane and on-street buffered bicycle lanes. There is an improved pedestrian crossing and dart stop near 45th Street, which we'll kind of see in the graphic here. So this is the view of kind of what what it looks like from the 47th Street's off to your screen to the left, and 42nd Street's off to the screen to the right. So I know a lot of comments came in about we need a better crossing in this vicinity, and that's where the enhanced pedestrian crossing would be. This crossing would have a pedestrian refuge and some signage. It would not be a signalized crossing per se. So moving on to the next section. This is another section, the area back at at Polk Boulevard and University, and this area from 42nd to 41st are part of the nodes of the Invest DSM. So these are focused in from some of our folks to enhance these areas as focal points of the corridor as well. So we're looking between 42nd and 41st. It's also converting it down to a 3-lane with the left turn lane and the off-street bicycles, because as you'll see from the graphic, keeping it on the street creates some confusion there near the signals. And the 42nd Street is looking to improve some signals and also address some of the dart stops. And 41st to 39th also kind of going back to that 5-lane to 3-lane conversion, back to on-street bicycle lanes with the improved crossing, pedestrian crossing near 39th Street. So looking at this is one of the larger graphics, 42nd Street there on your left. What we're looking at enhancing those bicycle lanes behind the bus stop areas in this particular area to try and eliminate those conflict points between the buses and the bicycles and moving traffic as well. These have some bus pullout areas in the 42nd Street. And we have a graphic here to kind of enhance this area a little bit more, but looking down at 39th Street, that has a enhanced pedestrian crossing as well down in this vicinity. So looking at the next slide, we're looking at what the city's option, preferred option would be is having that parallel parking remain on the north side. The area on the south side would kind of create a bus pull-off area in this area. And then you can see some of the bus stop shelters and stops with another enhanced crossing with a median in the area. These visions below that area on the bottom of the sheet are what would be possible there. Again, this is a vision of what this area could be. I know these enhanced medians take a lot of maintenance and a lot of work. So this is just an idea of what this area could look like as well. So
Dave, in the budget is probably, like I said, the roadway improvements. The median would probably be maybe similar to what's down by Windsor Elementary as a concrete median, unless something changes with that, right?
Correct. So looking further to the east from between 39th and 35th, we're continuing to keep that conversion of the 5-lane to 3-lane with the 2-way center left turn lane with the on-street buffered bicycle lanes. We're adding some parallel parking on the north side between 37th Street and 35th Street, looking at a dart stop near 37th Street as well. And this also includes installation of a storm sewer for what we call the Western Ingersoll sewer separation on the south side between 39th and 35th. We did not include this as part of our Western Ingersoll sewer separations that we are currently building now, because we didn't want to disrupt University 2 different times. We didn't want to disrupt it once for the sewer installation, then come back, and then all of a sudden, oh, we're going to address this some improvements along the corridor. We like to do those all at once and reduce the impacts to the traveling public as much as possible. So on the next slide, I think we have some graphics of the corridor as well, starting there at 39th Street on the left. We're looking and hoping for a enhanced bus stop there at 37th Street. However, we need to get into the design of this and the grades and how that works with the adjacent retaining walls and the other properties. That grades may be a constraint on whether we can perform this or not. So, but looking east of there, you can see some parallel parking spots on the north side of the street with also an enhanced pedestrian crossing there at 35th Street as well. So this kind of takes us over to 35th Street. And then this extends beyond from 35th over to 31st Street. Converting that 5-lane to 3-lane continues on. We're looking at the dart stops near 31st, 32nd, 34th. And then we have some 31st Street intersection improvements to basically tie that previous conversion and streetscape improvements together with this project. So Looking at the next slide with that graphic, it kind of shows the continuation from the left end of the screen of the west back to the east, and then looking at some of the continuing on the off-street bicycle lane, crossing that 30th Street right on the north side of the intersection and coming back to a on-street facility. So those will be trying to mold those two projects together to create a very safe and continuous project through the corridor. So what's our schedule? This is our anticipated schedule is we will be designing this winter 21-22, looking at if we need any right-of-way easements or acquisitions if necessary this next year. Hoping to start construction and where you'll see the lane closures and start of construction is spring of 23, so a year from now. And then hoping to have everything wrapped up and substantially complete by the end of 2023. And then we may have to come back in the following year, a spring 24, to resurface or seed or sod or do some touch-ups here and there. So with that, that's the schedule. And the next slide kind of shows, I know that Shive Hattery has been working with the Invest DSM and our planning folks to really focus on a couple of these nodes, one over at Polk Boulevard and one at 42nd to 41st Street. So they've created a what they call a microsite there at that website at the top to kind of give an input and you know, there's some questions there and some more information and some more renderings in that area. So to provide some more input for those nodes. We will, if you don't have a chance to talk tonight or you're uncomfortable, you can always contact Chris Cool. He's the project manager for engineering, and call him, email him. He has his phone number here, 283-4073, or Chris Cool. And this way, even if after the meeting you're like, oh, I forgot to ask that one question, you can always send that in to Chris. And if we could get those before the end of January, that would be helpful, just so we can incorporate those comments and incorporate those modifications or thoughts into the design, so we don't get too far down the road of starting the design and then somebody comes back with a good idea or some suggestions, and we've gone down the road of design. So like Steve said, this Zoom meeting is being recorded, so we will post this on our website under the engineering department project and studies. We will also post this presentation, so you can go back and look at it a little bit more detail, zoom in and see any of the details you may have missed or had questions on as well, and that may generate some questions as well. So with that, I see some folks with their hands up to add, Steve. So
yep, no, that's great. Thank you, Dave. If I could have you mute, I think you'll get some feedback there. Sorry. So yeah, we've got a few people with their hands up. I'll just read them out. You know, Todd Hotchkiss, Danielle Brooks, Todd Schnell, and Darren Slapcole. We see you got your hands off. Scott Bentz as well. So we'll start here. And Carol Maher, let's start with Todd Hotchkiss. Let me see if we can unmute you there. Okay, there you go.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
I'm getting a feedback, but anyway, I noticed that the street widths didn't change any. It went from 50 feet to 50 feet, mostly between. What I'm concerned about is when I walk my dog from about Polk Boulevard to 42nd Street, and I go down that street, and there's 3 feet between the sidewalk and the road, and I know that we're going to have most of the traffic be another 12 feet, 15 feet maybe what is that? 8 feet away from where it is currently, which is a bit of a help, but I wish there was a way to, and I have it, the thought occurs to me that sometimes you have, you call it off-street bicycling, and sometimes you have on-street bicycling. What is the rationale for having on-street bicycling versus off-street? Because off-street seems like it's more like next to the sidewalk, and it's more of a quieter kind of traffic. That 3 feet of buffer between a car and a bike is kind of nebulous and not very, there's not much there. Whereas if that was grass and the bike was up on the same level, say, as the sidewalk, it might feel a little bit better.
Yeah.
So that was my concern.
Okay. Thank you, Tom. That's a great question. So to be honest, if the budget wasn't an issue, if we had a blank sheet of paper, we would prefer a wider parking or parkway green space to separate the sidewalk. This project is kind of a combination of the road needs to be resurfaced. So we had money in the budget to mill and overlay the road. And so that gives us an opportunity to improve it as we can. The road is not being fully reconstructed. So the curbs are, for the most part, other than some select areas, the curbs are and sidewalks, they're staying as is. So the majority of the length of the corridor is literally milling down the asphalt and then putting on new asphalt surface. And then the pavement markings will go back different. So instead of a 5-lane, it would go back as what you see here. And then we did add money to the budget to do these pedestrian crossings to do more additional work at the nodes. So in regards to your question on the parkway and the green space, ultimately, yeah, we would prefer it to be wider, but it is not part of the budget. So it's not in terms of is it the road does not really warrant full reconstruction. When we talk about full reconstruction, to give you an example, Fleur Drive, that's a full reconstruction project. To be honest, that project is probably shorter than this length than this one, but it's in terms of length, but that's a $20 million project. So to give you we don't have $20 million to reconstruct a road that quite frankly, pavement condition wise doesn't need it. So it's the pavement rehabilitation that's selected there. And I don't know if do we have Jeff Wiggins or anybody from traffic that could maybe help better explain that? Todd had a question on the bike lanes. When do we go on street versus off street? I'm not sure.
Steve, I'm here if you want me to tackle that.
Awesome, thank you. Awesome.
So this is Jeff Wiggins, transportation planner with the city. The area at the west end to west of Polk, we're simply tying back into the existing trail that was extended as part of the previous project up to the end of the Waveland Golf Course. And so we were looking, as we were getting into the more urban area, to transition back onto the on-street system. And so that's exactly what you see here, is to tie it back to the areas to the east. For example, in front of Drake University, where you already have the on-street lanes in place. So it's sort of the difference between the urban and suburban context in terms of why keep it on street versus off street.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, in this case, Jeff, you're saying that because it goes right through the heart of our neighborhoods. We're looking at a speed limit of 30 miles an hour. So we would not. When you say the suburban, of course, I think of kind of our out in the suburbs where you see sometimes wider, higher speed streets is where the off-street facilities would come into play. Is that correct, Jeff?
Correct. And as you have more destinations, you want to keep the folks in the street. When you place them at the sidewalk grade and or adjacent to the sidewalk or in a shared use path condition, each one of those driveways, each one of those intersections, each one of those public rights of way becomes a conflict point that becomes more dangerous. So from a safe cycling perspective, it's safer to keep folks in the street as you get into that more urban context.
Okay. Excellent. Well, thank you, Todd. Those are great questions. Thank you. We have Danielle Brooks. Danielle, let's see if we can unmute you here. Oh, there you go. Okay.
Hi there. So I currently live on the on 47th Street on the block just north of University. So I definitely think that the intersection of 47th and University does need some restructuring, and I do like some of the proposed plans. One of my concerns though with the right in, right out is it really does limit accessibility onto my street, especially when you are going eastbound. There's no way to turn left onto 47th anymore. And I think that that is fine. However, for a lot of guests or residents on that block, you know, right now there's only northbound parking on 47th Street, which would mean that the only way to park is if you're coming westbound on University. So one of my thoughts is whether we could make 47th Street, especially that block just north of University, make it have on-street parking accessible on both sides of the street, north and southbound. That way, for those who have to reroute, instead of turning left from University onto 47th Street, you might have to go around to like Carpenter and turn right to get to your house. There's no way to now park on that side of the street. So it'd be great if we could maybe change 47th Street to both side on-street parking.
And so that's an excellent comment. Thank you, Danielle. The things we will have to go look at in response to that is the width of the street, and then we have with the width requirements are also looked at from an emergency response standpoint. So if the street is too narrow, we need to have a certain width between parked cars on both sides for emergency response. So that's what we'll have to look at to see if that's a possibility. Yeah, so thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Excellent. Okay. Todd Snell, I think Todd, you had mentioned in the chat, you have a question about this area as well. Looks like, right, Todd? Yeah.
I also live on 47th Street near College. And I really wish that you wouldn't limit the accessibility to 47th Street. You know, I use that very frequently, turning north into 47th Street from University. And of course, then also coming out of 47th Street, going on to University East. And it looks like, I guess my question is, will U-turns be permitted in this area?
A U-turn
coming from 47th Street, going around the traffic, yes, that way, onto University East. I'm
not sure if we've looked at that. That's a good question. I don't know if any of our traffic team had looked at that or not. I'll pause for a second in case they have. I don't remember us. I think the thought was that, you know, that the folks would go north to Carpenter and either go over to 46th or 48th. This was a challenging intersection, to say the least. It is confusing when you're kind of, if you're going to get caught in that unknown zone where where do I stop when the traffic signal is red at Polk Boulevard. So it is a challenge to deal with. But let's see if I have it. Pause just for a second. I don't know, any of our traffic team members, did we look at that yet, or is that something we'll have to address when we get into design, maybe? Oop.
So
Jen, I see you're unmuted. Jen, I see you're unmuted. Did it? Oh, maybe not. Okay.
I'll tell you that I lived on 47th Street for 17 years now, and although it is confusing, I agree with Danielle, it is very confusing there. But I haven't seen a lot of accidents, traffic accidents there. And the reason I make comments here is that I feel like this is inviting some traffic accidents here, because I can see, including myself, when I'm coming from University wanting to turn north into 47th Street, I'll probably want to go around that median and then up into 47th Street. And then coming south on 47th Street on east onto University, I'll probably want to go around that median. And I feel like my neighbors will do the same.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Todd. And yep, thank you. Thank you. That's okay. I have Darren Schlapko. Let me see if I can unmute you here. There you go.
Thanks, Steve.
Yeah. Okay.
Hey, appreciate you guys taking the time, you and staff, to go through this project. I'm with Wesley Life. We've recently acquired the building at 3206 University, so we're on the far eastern side of the project, and we're relocating our Meals on Wheels mission to that location and expanding it, as well as adding a couple other services to the building that we recently acquired there. So I guess my question is more just about logistics rather than the project itself. We are looking to get through design and into construction later this year, and wondering about impact of the project once it gets started on just commercial traffic from a construction standpoint for our project. I know there'll be plenty of activity going on with your portion of the project, as well as if it continues beyond our completion date, what type of restrictions would you foresee? I know hard to plan and timing, but on this end of the project, as we get into the time of operations where we will have produce deliveries, other goods delivered by Cisco or whomever the provider might be, just trying to understand some of those aspects of the project. I think the project looks great. Excited for it to happen. For what we're doing there, it's going to be great. But just curious about some of those logistical items for us and how we might have to, work around or schedule certain activities based on what might be going on our main point of access into the building.
Okay. Thank you, Darren. I don't know if Dave Camp or yep.
Yeah. So for the most part, the majority of this project is going to be a milling and resurfacing. So it's going to be I don't want to call it minimal impacts, but it'll be a short-lived impact. The majority of the impacts to this project will be associated with the storm sewer installation from about 35th Street over to 39th Street, and also at your nodes, 30th Street, 42nd, and then over near Polk Boulevard. So as far as the impacts to your specific property should be fairly limited and manageable, because you're in that section of a just a mill and resurface section. So that'll just be something that you'd want to coordinate with our project engineer and our inspection staff, who will be out on the job through the entire project, to kind of keep coordination of what to expect and when to expect it. So that's what I would see as the impacts to your specific property.
And Chris, if you can make note of Chris Cool and Dave, you can make note of Darren's information. I think when he registered, he would have provided his email too. We can maybe connect as well.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, I think for us, we just want to make sure that we're, staying out of your way and doing what we need to do in order to get whatever contractor or vendor, into the property. So there's no changes in types of vehicle use, weights, gross weights, those types of things, that's going to be noted here or restricted, will there? From what it
No,
already is.
No, this should still, yeah, go ahead, Steve.
Oh, yeah, this will stay a truck route. Yep. This will
Okay.
stay. Yep. So
Great. Thanks,
Yeah.
guys. Really appreciate it.
thank you, Darren. And just Dave, just to clarify, Dave Camp, I think what I was hearing, is we don't anticipate by any means a full closure of University Avenue, that University Avenue, even during construction, would remain open, one lane in each direction to traffic. But what you probably would see, and again, and correct me if I'm wrong, is especially around these nodes, you would see extensive lane closures. So there might be only one lane in each direction while they're working, say, on the south side. There'd be one lane in each direction, kind of similar to how University in front of Drake was done. Is that sound like what people should expect, Dave?
Correct. The worst case scenario is if we did do a closure to pave the whole thing, but it's going to be so wide that we could do it in keeping traffic open. So yes, what your statement is very accurate.
And when you said closure, maybe to pave something, you'd be thinking maybe a 1 day.
A 1 day, maybe. And I just want to throw that out there so people wouldn't be surprised. A section of roadway, maybe a 1 day on a weekend closure to just get it all done instead of making people go through the construction pavement. That's what we did on University to the west. Granted, there was less access points, but I just want to throw it out there that it might happen for 1 day, but for the majority of the time it's going to be open. So
Okay, thank you. Okay, Scott Bentz. Scott, let me see if I can get you unmuted here. Great. Okay.
Hi, thanks, Steve. I live near this area, and I drive to some of the businesses on this stretch of University, as well as I bike to them with my 4-year-old kids. And I think that, what I'm seeing here is going to be a big improvement to make the road safer for everybody, whether they walk or bike or take the bus or drive. And I just wanted to give my support to it. So that's all I had. Thanks.
Great. Thank you so much, Scott. Appreciate it. Okay. Carol Maher. Let me see if I can get Carol. Oh, there you go, Carol.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
And thank you once again for including the community on this and other projects. And thanks for listening to me. As some on this call know, that I've been vocal about the current intersection at Polk and University, especially going north on Polk, arriving at University on a bike and trying to turn left. Because you can sit at that light and wait for the sign to turn green, and it never will, because there's not a hoop there to recognize a bicyclist in that left turn lane. So the remedy for that is you park your bike there. If you have a kickstand, you put your bike there. You walk over to the crosswalk on the west side and hit the cross button, and then go back and wait for the light to turn green. So I'm hoping that this project will remedy that, because currently, even if there's 5 cars behind you at the intersection, the light still will not turn green. So there's something in the pavement right there that it must only pick a car up at that first slot, because it doesn't recognize cars further back, and it doesn't recognize bikes at all. So please fix that.
Okay. Great. Thank you, Carol. And so I'm just going to repeat, just so it's northbound. If you can see my cursor, northbound travelers on Polk Boulevard. And so obviously, if you were going northbound, to turn left going westbound, if you're a bicyclist, the light doesn't change. It gets stuck at red and it doesn't change. And even if a car pulls up behind you as a bicyclist, there must not be loops that are
Right.
triggering anything as well there. So that's something we have to
Correct.
look
It'll
at.
tease you by counting down like it's gonna change, but it doesn't.
Okay.
So thank you. That would be really great. And It appears from this drawing too, that you are going to recognize the crosswalk going across University on the east side there at that intersection, because today there's not a button to hit to go across there, or even to come west. So hopefully you'll add a big button there on that light. That would be really great. And if you could put countdowns on those, those are so lovely for everyone. So thank you. You mentioned rush hour parking currently. Is that going away or is that staying? I was confused on that.
So Carol, I think what you're talking about is today, there is, I'll be honest, I actually find it confusing a little bit today, but you know, there is parking during certain timeframes on University to the east of there. So in this case, the roadway would go to 3 lanes, and let me show some graphics here. So obviously the parking would be, there would not be parking on University except for where we're adding in parking spaces. So see here, we're adding some spaces here between 35th, 37th, as well as west of 48th Street. So so there would not be parking on along, you know, because it would just be one travel lane in each direction plus this bi-directional left turn lane. So
okay, and those will not be rush hour restricted, the ones that you're adding?
no, they would not be. They would be not be rush hour restricted, because they would actually be, these are actually bump outs, if you will, or actual parking insets, so they're off the roadway. So
Okay, got it. Thank you.
yeah.
And then I have a question regarding the pavement color you're using. I see red in some places, and I'm curious as to how you're going to use the red, especially around this uptown shopping district that you have up there, as well as connecting to the Waveland Golf Course.
Yep.
Are those multimodal lanes, or are those bike only lanes? Because often, like for instance, on Ingersoll, the bike only lanes are red, and I just want to make sure this is consistent.
Yep. And so so to answer your question, this is following an Ingersoll model. So the red is the bike lane, bringing it off street just through the node. So the red, using the different color, is for the bike lane, and then you can see here there's a sidewalk next to the bike lane in this case. So
okay, and will there be on pavement markings as far as where to walk and where to ride there?
I apologize, I didn't, the bike lane actually would be red pavement, and so it would be, as you kind of see here in this graphic, hopefully maybe in the lower left here, see how there's a bike lane marking, and then it's red.
Right.
Yep. So that's what it would look like, you know.
Okay, and you'll add maybe more often than they are on Ingersoll on pavement markings as far as where you're supposed to walk and where you're supposed to ride?
You know, I'm not I couldn't answer that right now, but is that's your comment, is you request to add more? Is that okay?
Yeah, that would be awesome. And thank you for taking that away, one of those curb cuts going into the Uptown shopping center from University, because it is sort of a boondoggle there. But as Mr. Wiggins mentioned, when you have curb cuts along an off-street bike lane, there's really contention. And I'm concerned the one that is existing right there, that's going to be used a lot more than any of them that are on Ingersoll are used today. And it's tough going along Ingersoll knowing that people aren't expecting you there. And I'm a little concerned about that, frankly. Because cars are just going to pull all the way out to the road, right? And they don't know to look that a bike may be coming at them earlier than expected. So that's, you know, that's just a concern right there.
Okay.
Because there's a lot going on. And then how you're stitching that together to go from on street to off street to the left there at 42nd is really important, because there's a lot going on there and trucks and not the best view sheds and stuff. So please be cognizant of, I don't know if you can put green markings across the intersection or some way so that the bikes and the cars know that bikes are sort of changing where they're going through that intersection.
Okay.
That's just my thought. And then one more thing, as far as stitching it together on the other end from 31st, excuse me, going west, because currently that red lane goes behind a bus stop and then goes right into, like, I think you said you're going to maybe rework that, but goes right into like a wide sort of piece of concrete where pedestrians are and such. It kind of ends in an odd way. So being cognizant to how to stitch those together, I think, is really important, to go from off street to on at that intersection. Again, it's a very busy, lots of going on. So taking care there would be really important. And then finally, the streetscaping and the funky lights and the medians and stuff, you know, we have this big pot of ARPA funds. Perhaps if you put together a budget for that and pitch it to the city manager, there might be ARPA funds available for that. As long as we're doing this, let's get it done, is my point of view. So I'm sorry, thank you for all the time you've given me. Rock on.
Thank you so much. Yep. And I appreciate the comments, and the American Rescue Plan Act funds, we are still right now, is our understanding, and we still are waiting for more direction on those requirements. But there might need to be comments or I'm sorry, there are requirements for how those funds could be spent. So I wouldn't be able to answer obviously that. If we could make that happen. The other challenge that we'd have to do with the landscaping is typically these are done, and there is the maintenance component. I don't have teams who maintain this type of landscaping. So typically where you see it, for example, on Ingersoll Avenue, there is what's called a SMID, a self-serving district, that they maintain these elements, just as the same in the cases downtown. So those are the challenges we'd face with how to implement that. But thank you so much for your comments, Carol. I just wanted, the next one I got just is Ashley B. She wrote a comment in the chat a little bit ago. I have a clarifying question. As a resident living on 41st Street, initially when I was made aware of these plans, there were 3 options, and then the second was eliminated due to Hy-Vee trucking concerns. Are there still 2 options, or was one determined already? So what Ashley is talking about is when there was the surveys, there were a number of different concepts for this node here at the Uptown, but at 42nd Street, which you see here on the screen. And so in working through property owners, one of the options were eliminated because of how the trucks and delivery trucks and everything access the site. I think it was an option that had the access from here moved over to the middle. It was not feasible to make it move there. And then after evaluating the options further and kind of looking at how traffic flows, this option was recommended based on, one, trying to keep this, how to place this pedestrian crossing in proximity to driveway access points, since it's right next to, and then how to lay out the bus stops, where the buses stop. That's kind of generally where this alternative came to be. So is anybody traffic anybody from traffic, did I miss anything on that, on how this option came to be the city staff recommended option? Or I'll pause just in case. Okay. Thank you, Ashley. Hopefully sorry, we missed your comment there. You had to wait a little bit. And next comment we have Terry Taylor. Let's see, Terry, let's see if we can, there you go.
Hi, this is Elizabeth. Just a minute, please. Just a minute, please. Sorry.
No problem. Let me see if I can.
So I'll just shut that. So I'm talking on Terry's computer, but this is Elizabeth Stamper, and I also registered. I live on 44th Street and have lived here for a long time. I have some issues similar to Todd's issues. My husband and I are walkers, and we've walked a lot in our neighborhoods for over 20 years and have recognized that there are some issues on universities that are really unpleasant. And I don't think, even though y'all have addressed the issue with the road being in need of repair, I don't think you've addressed the issue of a walkable neighborhood, for us at least. Biking is important, I recognize that, but my safety is just as important as a person on a bicycle, in my estimation. And I live on the south side, no, correct, the south side of the street. And so when I walk on the south side of the street, whether I'm walking to the Hy-Vee or whether I'm walking to the hardware store, my safety is in jeopardy. And I say that because the sidewalk on my street is not on University, is not wide enough for two people to walk. So if somebody is waiting for a bus, or I'm walking near somebody who's waiting for a bus, one of us has to crawl up into someone's yard to be able to do that. That won't change if you put in a bike lane. If I am walking the dog, to the hardware store, there are parts that are roughly 2.5 feet wide from the street, and there are parts that are roughly 3.5 feet wide. There is no guidelines for that. I'd like to see that change. I'd like to see that pink path that you've designed that came all the way from Waveland, come all the way up to the Uptown Shopping Center, rather than pushing the bike trail back onto the street if necessary. If that allows for people to be able to walk safely and to be able to bike safely. Because currently you're addressing the bike issue, but you're not addressing the pedestrian walk. Again, I'm the one who also sent in a comment in regards to 41st and University, and I didn't see any improvements in regards to the crosswalks there. I know that the buildings are right there and they're very close, but there's no addressing the sidewalk or the street signage or anything like that that states that that's a crosswalk. And I think those need to be addressed just as important as putting in things that are attractive in terms of plants that somebody else has to take care of in the long run. If we're going to spend the money, let's look at all the people who are involved in this, please. Thank you. I don't know. Did you cut me off?
Nope. Nope. You're still there, Terry. Or I'm sorry, Elizabeth.
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
Nope, you're still there, Elizabeth.
I'm sorry. Did you hear what I had to say or not?
Yep.
Thank you. Sorry.
No, it's right.
It's just a passionate issue, and I know that there are a lot of walkers. I know that there are a lot of people who catch the bus in or around this area. I know that I've caught the bus to downtown. I know that I've crossed the bus to west. If there isn't enough room on the sidewalk for you to stand with someone else, you know, that's not safe and that's not fair, no matter what season it is.
Yep.
So you can change the roads, but gosh, if you spend this much money on a roadscape, wouldn't it be nice to know that the people who live in the neighborhood could enjoy it?
Great, thank you.
Thank
Elizabeth.
you.
Dave Camp, do we have a budget for this project? Do you recall?
Yeah, I can. Let me pull it up real quick.
Okay.
I'll be back with you.
So appreciate the comments, Elizabeth. There's no arguing into that. If we had a blank sheet of paper and the budget, we, our city standard for sidewalks, when we put new sidewalks in, is 5 feet at a minimum. So that's what we would prefer. And as I mentioned before, we would prefer a wider parking. But again, please know that is involving more intrusive, if you want to call it reconstruction, and again, I guess using Fluor Drive as an example, that in that case, Fluor Drive, you can see that, everyone, we got the t-shirt from Raygon making fun of us, right? Because it takes so long. Well, it's taken that long because it's a full reconstruction. We're actually digging completely down and replacing the entire full pavement structure and adding the 5 foot wide sidewalks all the way through. And the reason for that, again, is Fluor Drive, the condition of its pavement warranted full depth pavement reconstruction. So that was what was budgeted. In this case, what was programmed was a resurfacing project. And so the budget is not anywhere, Dave is looking it up, but it's, I can tell you, it's not even in multiplier near that amount. So
yeah, it's 2 million.
So again, to do what you're talking, we'd be looking at something in the magnitude of probably 10 times that amount. And Dave, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but just to give you a rough magnitude. And so again, it's not that we don't want that. We do. We have money programmed to resurfacing it. So how can we improve it? And then, yes, we did stretch the dollars more to add these crosswalks. You can see here for example, at 45th, there would be a median and signage with a crosswalk. So that way that residents would only be crossing 3 lanes instead of 2. And so, again, we do feel it's an improvement. Is it what we would want on a blank sheet of paper? No, it's not. So there's no arguing that we agree with you that ideally we would have 5 foot wide sidewalks the whole way with wider parkways and that. So
I ask that you reconsider adding that green space to the walkway over in the Uptown Shopping Center and reallocate that money to other areas that seem to need it a little bit more for safety. I mean, the green space is nice, don't get me wrong, but allocating that money for green space, it seems inappropriate when the safety of the people who are walking the area can't be addressed because you're saying the funds aren't there. So, I'm asking you to look at the possibility. I don't know where the bike path leads or ends after you get beyond Polk Boulevard, whether you're turning right and going down Polk or whether you're expecting it to catch up, by Uptown Shopping Center. I don't know. It's not explained at all, but the walking in that area is key to keeping the neighborhood lively and people. I mean, we call Kingman Boulevard 235 at 4 o'clock in the afternoon because everybody is out walking it. I would like to see people consider University that important if you're going to take it down to 3 lanes. But right now, you can't walk it safely. And so people don't go on it, except for those who are trying to be in their neighborhood or those who are attempting to catch a bus. That's my personal opinion. And then I'll leave. Thank you.
I have one question for you. Is it the issue of, I know that based on the earlier comment, it was not feeling safe close to the traffic currently as it is today. And with the bike lane being there, it's kind of pushing the traffic 8 feet further from you. So is the issue that the traffic isn't far enough from you, or is it that the existing sidewalks are 4 feet versus 5?
Both. It is both.
So,
and it is the case of currently there is parking on University between 42nd Street and our street. Correct. Because there are several units there and there are several businesses there that park on the south side of the street. So when you get a car parked there in the afternoon and you get, a bicyclist on the sidewalk and you try to walk just to go get a gallon of milk at either your local convenience store or at the grocery store, you can't do it.
Gotcha. Okay.
Not safely.
Okay. So
and going the other direction, one last thing, if you go the other direction from 44th Street down to Polk Boulevard, you go from a 3 foot wide to maybe a 1.5 foot wide to a 3 foot wide, back and forth. There's no consistency. And I know that some of that belongs to the street and some of that belongs to the city and some of it belongs to the neighborhood, but there's no consistency. So it portrays badly for our city because it doesn't represent us well. I mean, you're asking people to ride bicycles and you're asking people to enjoy the scape and everything and to worry about the people backing up in the neighborhoods, but there's no consistency on the sidewalks or the size of the sidewalks. And so why would you walk it?
Okay. Okay.
I mean, my question is, have any of you walked it?
We've walked it. I grew up in this area as well. So yeah, I'm
just asking.
with it.
So he knows how bad it is.
I've crossed the street to walk on the other side because the depth between the sidewalk and the street is bigger.
Yeah, and not like Steve said, we're not disagreeing with what the existing conditions are out there. We understand that. So
I'm just saying that, before you allocate the money for green space and pull-offs and, things like that, I appreciate those. And I know that the kids who are using the bus or the people who are using the bus appreciate those. But I also look at, I'm looking at that and you have the shelter stop in one spot and the pull-off in another. So are you hoping they're going to walk from there to there?
Oh, so that's a good question. I mean, let me try and clarify this area. So again, we're transitioning into the node. So the red would be the bike lane. The white marking here would be a new 6 foot wide sidewalk. In this node, we are proposing some more improvements just to limit the access. And then Dart has requested that they have currently the bus just stops. So this is one of their main routes, and the bus has kind of a holding spot where they stop for a while. And so they've requested this, since the road is going down to 3 lanes, this bus pull off area. And so that the buses would just sit there for a while. But when the buses are in operation, they would stop right here in front of the shelter. So when there are buses at the bus stops, just like everyone else would stop. Yeah.
I mean, I appreciate that, but I'm sorry, I still have some real issues with this and the amount of money that we're hoping to spend on it. I understand that university needs to be resurfaced and we would like to contain it all, but I think you need to reevaluate some of this stuff. That's my personal opinion. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak, though.
Yep. Thank you so much, Elizabeth.
This is Indira Shoemaker, just was elected for the Ward 1 City Council seat. I just wanted to say I really appreciate your comments, and I've been writing down everything you're saying. I absolutely appreciate everything that you said and the concerns that you hold. I want to guarantee to you, first of all, that we don't have money allocated for the green space right now. So it's not like there's any prioritizing of making the 41st or 42nd node pretty and then disregarding safety down the street. That is all just, artist rendering type of thing, but there's absolutely no priority of allocating money for green space over safety. But regardless of that specific concern, I just wanted to say I appreciate everything that you brought up and the issues that you and others have brought to our attention today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Shoemaker. So yep, and Councilmember Shoemaker is correct. Yeah, as I mentioned, we don't have funding for the landscaping and the aesthetic type features at this time. It's currently on the 2 million is for the roadway improvements and the roadway improvements that you see. So, okay. Let's see. I have Tim Urban. Tim, let's see if we can try and I had you for a second here, and now I'm trying to find it here. There we go. Let's see if we can try and unmute you, Tim. Oh, there you go. Yep. Yep. Go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, I'm not going to go into a lot of issues that I raised in a correspondence with Chris. Chris can get back to me on many of those issues. I am curious about one thing, which is there's been no mention whatsoever throughout the various meetings we've had with consultants on overhead electric. Now, the city has a new zoning ordinance has a very strict requirement that everybody that develops their property or improves it has to go underground with electric. Yet you widened Fleur Drive and tore up the entire right of way and didn't touch the overhead lines on the west side of the road. And as someone lives on Fleur, I thought that was ridiculous. As a subdivider or developer, I put conduit in the ground so Mid-America could run their lines into a subdivision at my expense. And yet here the city did a major widening project and didn't even address the overhead lines. Obviously, it's too late. You can't do that now. It would be ridiculous. But you could do it here because there is a ability to go up 41st, run behind the north buildings along the alley where there's overhead power lines, and back down again on the other side of the road, so that through this section of the shopping center, you don't have overhead lines and the big transformers and all the other apparatus with it on one side of the road and nothing on the south side, no overhead on the south side. So I would like to see you put some priority on the same thing you expect everybody else to do in terms of bearing overhead lines. I have a couple of other small questions. It seems to me from what you've said that you're trying to work within the same curb to curb template that you have already, because you can't really afford to completely tear out sections of existing pavement and then repave, because that you move into a whole different cost situation. And that, I assume, explains why you went from a 10, 10, 10, 10, 10 cross-section detail to an 11-foot, 12-foot, 11-foot dimension, which seems a little contrary to intuition, and that is that if you're trying to slow traffic down, you don't create a wider street. Generally, the guideline is that the narrower the street, the slower people travel because they are more cautious. But if it's because you have to work within the same 50-foot curb to curb section, then it's just a matter of where you put the stripes. You know? And I'm assuming that's what this represents when I see the 3-lane concept, a striped section that separates the cars from the on-street bike lane, and then, of course, the existing curb. That's correct?
Yep. So, yep, that's right. And so again, we are holding the curbs as you stated. The reason for the 11-foot lanes is more due to this being a emergency response primary route, truck route, and the DART route. We do generally propose 10-foot lanes most everywhere else when there's not these conditions. In this case, when we talk about the speeds, the speed benefit of this project is going down to the 3 lanes. And so you have 1 lane in each direction. So generally, people drive at a reasonable speed. And so most people driving at a reasonable speed, the lead car will control the speed. And so you don't have, like you have on a 5-lane road or a 4-lane road. So I live on the east side, I live on East Hole. And so I take Hubble Avenue every day. And so Hubble Avenue, a 4-lane road, I can tell you there are maneuvers that I see people do that would make NASCAR drivers jealous. And so when you get those 4-lane roads, there isn't the reasonable, let's put it bluntly, the reasonable driver controls the speed most likely. So that's actually more where the speed reduction comes into play here with a road diet or 3-lane reduction is because we're reducing the amount of lanes. But we agree with you. You're absolutely right, Tim, that generally there is a correlation between, and you can find this published, between 12-foot lanes down to 11-foot lanes down to 10-foot lanes as well for speed reduction. In this case, we're keeping the 11-foot primarily because of the corridor being a truck route and primary emergency response. So. Okay.
So I talked about the overhead lines. I talked about the condition of the lane widths. And these are issues I'm raising that are not part of generally the communication I sent to Chris.
Okay.
The other question is, you have a crossing in front of DMU on Grand Avenue, which is a pedestrian activated signal.
Yeah.
and a small safe zone platform in the middle of the road that people can get on and get off. And you've had to create a zigzag around it with the cross section. But with this 50 feet to work with, you've got a lot of room. It seems to me that, and frankly, that where you talk about a crossing only half a block east of 42nd Street, it doesn't make sense to have a signalized crossing there because you have one just a half a block away at the intersection. But when you have one, say at 30, was it third, where were you having a crossing further east on University?
There's one at 39th here and at
39th.
35th.
That's the one I was thinking of. Again, that is far enough away from any other signalized intersection where I think if you want to create a truly safe crossing environment for pedestrians, you create that option for them to activate a signal to stop traffic so they can get across rather than skipping to the middle of a platform in the middle of the road and then back out again. So I only raise that because it seems logical that if you're going to do it, you do it in a place where you're far enough away from other alternatives that it makes sense. Lastly, and I picked this up on my communication to Chris, I'd like to see that landscape median that you have shown in part of the uptown cross section extended as far as you can go west before you need the deceleration turn section on the paving in order to provide. Keep in mind, we're unique in this entire project. We own both sides of the road. And so that is a real positive for you, by the way, because we could landscape that median as a common area expense for the shopping center. Doesn't have to be a SMID, doesn't have to go through all the rigmarole that you have of creating a separate tax district, but we already landscape public right-of-way around our shopping center anyway. And it's paid for through, benefit assessments, if you will, through our common area maintenance with our tenants. So unless it's extremely elaborate, we would have no problem if it enhanced the aesthetics of the area. But I would make that conditional on getting those lines out of there.
Great.
Anyway, those are my comments.
Thank you so much, Tim. I appreciate that. Just for note, in terms of the overhead burial lines, so Tim is right that the city does have within their development requirements that when properties redevelop or there's new developments that happen, they are required to bury the overhead lines. And so that is a requirement. Downtown, there's a designated overhead burial district. And so that is done through agreements with Mid-American Energy based on charges where those are buried because they're in the district. Fluor Drive, those lines weren't buried. One, it was literally a financial. It's as burying the overhead lines is very expensive. It's usually when I do these, I've done these projects across the Midwest. I used to live in Chicago before I came here. They were generally 70 to 75,000 per pole. So when you look along a block here, you count up the poles. That's generally how much it would cost to completely bury the overhead utilities. Again, it could vary drastically. It depends on the number of private property owners and how their services are.
Yeah.
But it again, Tim, frankly, it's a money thing, and then also an issue of if not here, why not everywhere, right?
Well,
And so
Mike, in this particular case, I'm not talking about burying the lines at all. I'm simply talking about moving the overhead lines half a block north, running them behind the north buildings and back again so that you don't have to have them overhead through that section of the road.
I see. So instead of burying them, you'd route them up 41st, like you said, then down the alley.
The poles are already there. We may have to get into an expense of running a different connection from the overhead lines into the rear sections of some of the tenants along that north building, but we could deal with that. It just seems that if we're going to make this kind of investment for the aesthetics of it, particularly, that we do it all the way. We don't just halfway do it.
Great. Thank you so much, Tim. Thank you. Appreciate
Thank you.
it. Okay. Next, I have Spencer Richardson Jones. Let's see.
Hi.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much for having this meeting. I'm really grateful to see this process go forward and hear all these comments. I just wanted to echo a couple of the earlier comments. I think Elizabeth's comment about walking is a really good one. It's my hope, I guess, by reducing the line. When I go walking along here or have one of my children with me, it's really just the speed of the cars going by and the proximity to the sidewalk that's so troubling to me. So I do hope that, with the bike lane there being painted, reducing the number of lanes, that'll make the big difference, which is people just go more slowly so you don't have a truck, 3 feet away from you while you're walking. I also wanted to echo back to Carol's earlier comment about the new entrance point at the Uptown Shopping thing. You're on the slide right now at 41st Street, where people will be coming in if that's the main entrance in. I also worry that that's going to be a real conflict point just because it already is a pretty extreme one. People are kind of gunning it there. And if there's any place to put a stoplight or something like that, or really, enhanced crossing, I mean, that would be my number one vote for it, just because I live on 39th Street, so I cross along there a lot. I think that having a crosswalk right near 39th Street will be a really big improvement for me and my family. I see that 41st Street might be still kind of dicey, especially with, as Carol was mentioning before, like bikes, cars, pedestrians, and people who are trying to get into the Hy-Vee area kind of maybe getting impatient. And that will be something where I think a lot of care needs to be taken to protect everyone. And especially because I think when there was that last fatality around here, it was right around there. My main question is about the sort of enhanced crosswalks. And I missed a little bit of what Tim said a moment ago, is in the sort of 40th to 35th stretch, I think you had 2 crosswalks planned. And I know that these are going to be sort of, you said before that these are sort of going to be like unlighted. It'll just be, space for a pedestrian to cross, wait, and then cross again. But there won't be any additional flashing lights or anything to like indicate to cars that a pedestrian will be going through.
That's correct. So Spencer, I don't know, is this, if you can see my cursor here, this little photo right here, maybe I could zoom in. Well, shoot, it's in PowerPoint.
I can look it up later. I guess this is more, I'm doing this on my phone, so everything is itty bitty, but just one of the hard parts about the stretch between 31st and 42nd right now is just, it's really wide. People drive really, really fast, and it's very dangerous to cross there. So I think that the lane diet will help with that and ameliorate that, but it's still going to be, it's a pretty big stretch before anyone has to slow down. It's still going to be, there's no stoplight or stop sign or anything between 31st and 42nd. So, and when you're right in the middle of that, that's when the cars will have picked up speed, if they're going to pick up speed. So if there is an opportunity to put something that is more, I don't know, flashier or, brightly lit or somehow to really indicate that there are pedestrians crossing, I would recommend that would be a good spot to do it. The same sort of thing between 42nd and Polk. It's a long stretch. People are going downhill in one direction. And that's, when I've walked along there, that's where you really see the speed is about the middle of it. So if there's going to be a enhanced pedestrian crossing there, I know we can't necessarily do it everywhere, but those would be places that I would really recommend it if it is possible.
Okay, thank you, Spencer. Yep, and so this photo kind of shows a graphic of what we're proposing generally. Trying examples. There was one put on Easton Boulevard, east of East Hubble. I know that's on the east side, but that was a roadway that was taken from a wider roadway and converted to a 3-lane, and then it had this pedestrian refuge island and crossing. I can tell you it was, that project was successful, not only by measurements, but also by the fact that, to be honest, I got calls from a resident who was angry because we were slowing him down. So I don't mean to sound come off as rude, but that was my goal. So I was, even though he was very angry with boisterous, I was happy with that result of a call, to be honest. So I'm just trying to give you some examples of what it would look like.
So that's really encouraging to hear. And I've been looking forward to this project coming together for a long time. When it happened on either side of us, I was really, feeling good that it was going to happen someday, but I really can't wait for it to happen. This looks great.
Thank you. Thank you, Spencer. Ryan Arnold. Ryan, let's see if we can unmute you there. Okay. Great.
Thank you so much, Steve. Ryan Arnold. Typically, I talk to you from my role as Drake University's Director of Community Engagement, but today I'm a resident interested in this as a citizen of Des Moines. I really just want to echo some of Tim and Spencer's comments. Specifically around the crossings at 38th and 35th Street. I do believe that the pedestrian refuge island is an improvement, clearly, from the current condition, and which is no crossing, especially at 35th Street. And, I'm thinking back, it was probably 2014, 2015, when the neighborhood really organized, advocated with the city to have a hawk signal put in there at 35th Street so that we could connect the neighborhood. I understand the cost around the hawk signals. And I understand that rapid flashing beacons aren't the end all to be all. They don't solve everything. They give a false sense of security to pedestrians. But we found pretty good success there at, I guess that's 26th and 27th Streets on University Avenue with rapid flashing beacons. And that doesn't include the pedestrian refuge. And so, what I would encourage is if there's a way that we could at least look at the rapid flashing beacons, adding that in there just to add that extra element of visibility to pedestrians so they walk up, hit the light, and they're able to cross with a little bit more assurance that the cars are in fact seeing them.
Great. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you. Okay. All right. Is there anybody else that have any questions? Let's see here. I don't see any hands up.
I know it was at the very beginning, but is Todd Hotchkiss still in here? I wanted to know if after all the comments, if he felt like his concern was, addressed.
Let's see if Todd is still on.
I'm not seeing him in the participants list, so maybe I'll just follow up separately.
Yeah, I'm not seeing Todd anymore on the list anymore. We have a registration list. So I don't know, maybe John Davis, or we could download it and see if we have the contact. If you need that contact, Indira.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay. Any other questions? I'll pause for a little minute to see if anybody else has any. Let me, I'm waiting just for a little bit here. Hold up this screen. Again, if you think of anything afterwards, here's Chris Kuhl's information. I know Tim Urban had said he had sent an email to Chris, and so that's excellent. If you think of any questions as well after this, please feel free to send Chris an email. And here's his email here, ckkuhl@dmgov.org. Again, that's ckkuhl@dmgov.org. And I apologize, my voice seems to be leaving. I do struggle a little bit with asthma, so my voice must be losing. So I hope I'm clear enough for everybody. Okay. All right. Well, I'm not seeing any other questions, comments. I can't thank everyone enough for all your time. It's awesome to see 70+ people attend a public meeting. That's outstanding. That's just, I mean, that's awesome news. And so I appreciate everyone's time. I know it's been it's taken your evening up, but this is an important project for the city. You know, as a resident, and as a city staff member, I'm very excited about this project and making safety improvements. And so I can't thank you all enough for providing input. I want to thank our council members. You know, we have council member Indira Shoemaker, council member Josh Mandelbaum, council member Carl Voss. Thank you all so much for your time. They've put a lot of time into this as well, to say the least, and also helping us program and get money to do improve our neighborhoods. And so thank you. And again, thank you to my fellow city staff team members for all your time on this as well. So seeing no comments, questions, again, if you have anything later, please reach out. This is a project that I know it's a year away. We generally like to have these meetings early before we start detailed design, because that way, if we need to make changes and whatnot. So, but it is a year away. Even though it is a 2023 project, please, if you have any comments, try and get them to us this month, because we do want to start getting into the design features here. So, all right. Well, everyone, thank you so much again for your time, and everyone please have a wonderful evening and stay warm out there. It's cold. So thank you. So yeah. Night, everybody. Thank you.
Good night.